This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I am here with our old friend Chef Brad Long, Kathy B. Long up at the Brickworks, and we're here today to speak about a little series I am in the second chapter of called A Healthy Appetite. Now, Brad, you are kind of the master when it comes to raising a healthy appetite because you have 4 daughters and 1 son, is that not true?
Yep, 5 kids.
Now, how did you go about raising a healthy appetite with your children, with your family, and what kind of measure of success did you have?
I think, you know the thing that everyone tells the story where someone made you eat something and so you hate it? I don't think we ever quite got to that point because, you know, it's just an open-minded thing. We put a lot of stuff on the table, they try things, that's the only rule, they try them. There are things that my kids won't eat now, I suppose, but what I find is they learn that from other people. I find children's minds are already open, they just want tasty things.
Now, can you remember first introducing them to foods when they were very young? And did you ever run into any allergy issues?
Yes, well, I have allergies, so I always thought I would just ultimately passing that along, but it's not so genetic, it's more of a disposition, I guess, and then it's more environmental. So our first daughter ended up having nut allergies and some environmental stuff, but just that. I think trout, oddly enough. And that's kind of where that ended. Everyone else seems to be fine. First foods, though, were obviously, you know, breast milk gives away to just having a bit of what mom's eating here and there, and then we segue right into cooking the food. So that's easy. I mean, we would just cook whatever fresh vegetable we had, puree it, and do that thing where you freeze it in ice cube trays, and then take one out and just warm it up. So where we had our own food. That's not, I mean, I've heard stories of how that's so complicated, but it's dead easy. It takes minutes. Sure. It's like so logical and reasonable. And I think that there's also a flavor profile that a family sort of generates, just how they season things. And so the more you get your child into that pattern, the more they're going to be open to new foods as you put them down, because you're not widely varying this thing. It doesn't go from really sour to really sweet and then really salty all in one go. It all sort of follows a rhythm. You know, food is just one of those things to me that it has to be delicious, but it also, for me, it's like who I'm sharing it with, and it's also a time and place. And so family, you're with your family, you're with people you love, and you're sharing something with people, it makes all of that more functional.
How do you go about raising a healthy appetite in a child that does not include processed foods, junk foods?
Well, junk foods are, see, it's funny, I don't even think of that as food, but my kids are attracted to sugar just like everybody is. I'm the weird one. I don't really have that sweet tooth. I have a fat tooth, I guess. I have a broth tooth. You know, I'm just different that way. So we have treats, I suppose. You know, my wife's a pastry chef. Cheryl makes fresh desserts for them, but they also want frozen, sweetened, colored liquid in a plastic tube stuff, right? They want ice cream, of course. So what you don't want to do is restrict and say no. What you do want to do is if it's going to be that way, keep very little of it around so that they're eating the good stuff, and then you keep the little bits for at the end of the meal. Because it's not about, I don't use foods as treats, like, or a reward or as a bribe. Never, I think that's bad. Don't use food as a bribe or a treat. Use food as what it's supposed to be, as a primary need and a connector to people. And your fuel, the thing that makes you feel good. And if you do that, the crappier foods just come later. You just have to sequence it in a way that you're giving them here, have some fresh eggs, and here, have some fresh greens. And then if you want a bowl of ice cream, then we'll do that, but I might put some fresh fruit on it or drizzle some nice honey on it. You can always add a nutrient to that thing that's not great for them. You can also just get enough good food into them that the junk food isn't taking the place of good food. Because that's what junk food does when it's insidious, is that you eat it before dinner so that you don't eat the nutrient-dense food. You eat the crap, and then you're full. And, you know, sugar perpetuates eating more sugar. So you're in a spiral if you're in the sweetie treat thing. So the best way to do it is just keep good food around, keep the crap in the background as much as possible, and then that's kind of takes care of itself. The wild card in all that is kids' friends. That's the thing where you're not around, and that's when, you know, you go and serve them the thing that they've eaten for 5 years, and all of a sudden you put that and they go, I don't like mushrooms.
So this is peer pressure, basically.
I don't even know if you call it pressure. It's almost like a way of avoiding conflict with a new friend. They say, I don't eat these things, and you say, me either. And so I always do this, he's not here, she's not here, just eat it, and then later when you're with them you can not like it. Because you do realize that after you do food for so long, for so many people, that thing where I don't like this and I really like that is so utterly and completely irrelevant and utterly subjective to the person that it does go away for me. People say, I don't like that, and I do this, yeah, okay, whatever. Here, try it. I just do it because I also have that depth of actual medical fear where I've been in a hospital because of anaphylaxis. So that's a legitimate, terrifying risk moment that makes people who say, I don't like that, makes them sound really pointlessly childish compared to, I can't eat that, I'll die, right?
May we go back to your childhood and your first experiences of food? Were you raised in a household where food was a very important thing?
Yeah, damn right. I was raised in one of those sort of, I think, relatively 50s television type homes. My mom was at home. My dad worked, but he came home for lunch and was home for dinner basically every night. I'd come home from school for lunch until I got older and in high school, I think. So meal periods were actually a time when we sat down together, first of all. So it's not the food so much as the fact that we actually dine together. A thing that changes a lot of the dynamics of how everything functions in a house. So there's that coming together. Food becomes that connector.
We always ate dinner together as a family. It was a very important thing. Food was not really something my mother was in love with, or is to this day. But I think the social aspect of it and the coming together of the family, breaking bread together, was very important.
I actually think that's more important than having like a delicious meal, actually, sadly enough. And I also believe that it's extremely important not to strip people of their cultural ingredients in foods, because those things pull people together as well. Even if it's not particularly tasty, it's still important. But, I mean, the next thing is Mom was a good cook, so it wasn't that hard. She made delicious stuff. And Dad was the kind of guy who would say at 4:30 or 5 o'clock on a Saturday, or he got home from work pretty close after 5, you know, by 5:30 he'd be saying, come on, we'll go out to Matz's, or he'd name a farm, and we'd go to the farm gate and pick up whatever was in season, in actual fact, right? And then that went into a pot. So that was the veg, the corn, the broccoli, whatever, and that was also the fruit. That would be the sweet, that'd be whatever dessert would end up being. Because Mom would have the meat or the casserole or something already in the oven. And so I think that the big thing was that Mom cooked, and then she taught me how to cook certain things. Dad had his little portfolio of barbecue stuff, right? So everyone had their specialty thing that they contributed. But really the pivot is two things. It was connecting our family, but come on, man, we lived in Norfolk County in Port Dover, so we had all that farm gate, all that fresh produce in a part of Canada that's in the Carolinian forest. You're talking about so much really good fresh produce and fresh fish from the Great Lakes. So yeah, I have bias about food for sure because of my parents, without a doubt, and that experience.
What advice would you give to young parents, or not so young parents like myself, who are in the process of attempting to raise a healthy appetite in a child?
You want to walk the talk in front of your kids. You want to go grocery shopping with them. You want to show them fresh and not fear food, because that's what I find most prevalent in society today is people have this weird fear. Well, cooking's so hard, and I don't know where to buy that stuff, and I don't know what to do with it. And,
I agree with you.
I always say, look, I can teach you how to boil water and salt it properly, and you can cook probably 80% of the entire canon of food using a pot with boiling salted water in it. The rest of it is stuff that you can tag in later on. But you're talking about making really highly nutritious, fresh, delicious meals using a pot of boiling salted water. And if I can just calm the anxiety, that's when people will eat better. It's not about teaching them how to make veal prince orloff, right? You don't need to know how to use caul fat. You don't need to have a special braising pan. Just learn how to boil water and salt it, and you can make every kind of pasta. You can cook every vegetable to the point where I've done this to so many people. They go, I don't like broccoli. And I go, watch this. And you boil it, and you put a little bit of lemon juice and salt and some butter or olive oil in it, and you taste it, and they go, no, this is good though. This is special broccoli. I'm like, no, I just didn't boil the rat crap out of it, and I seasoned it. Because, this is not a particularly bizarre complaint, but some people just grew up with moms who weren't particularly great at seasoning the food.
Oh, yes.
And so the things that they say they hate, they don't hate those things. They hate the way they were prepared for a while, and now they can come back to them. And mushrooms, those are the things where I get some of these things, like olives. They're things that when you're young, when you're a baby, children have very, very good taste buds. They don't have words for all those tastes. So when they make faces and you put things in their mouth, it's just because it's sour doesn't mean they don't like it. Just because they make a weird squished up face, it's a reaction, it's not necessarily a bad reaction. So you actually have to say to them, so did you like that? Was it sour? That was good. Did you like that?
We have that with anchovies in vinegar with our 2.5-year-old right now, and he screws up his face, and I say, did you like that? He's like, yeah.
Yeah, that's the mistake, is people feed something to their kid, and the kid makes a mistake, and you go, oh my God, don't eat. And then the kid's like, well, I better not eat that. And so they learn, actually, that their reactions to food is the indicator of whether they like it, not their own opinions. And there's a whole bunch of other things. There's a great thing in Mark Schatzker's book, The Dorito Effect, about small children actually understanding on some level inherently what nutrients they need, so they crave those foods. And that would be, I don't find that far-fetched, because those are the atavistic, deep ingrained instinct things that we have fought generations to eradicate out of our brain that you can't get rid of it. You crave something, there's a reason you crave it. There really is.
Brad Long, thank you very much for joining us today at Good Food Revolution.
Cheers.
Bye for now.